Welcome back to the Strength and Speed podcast. I am your host, Mudgear Hannibal Race Pro and Strength and Speed owner, Evan Perperis. I am joined with me by a guest. Before I introduce her, though, this is a special episode because this is the final Strength and Speed obstacle course racing podcast episode. And I'll get into that a little bit more at the end and what that means. But I wanted to finish out the podcast the same exact way I started it. And I couldn't do that without the co-host. So Brenna Calvert, welcome back.
Woo! I guess now since I'm Brenna Jost now
Oh,
to
Brenna
the
Jost now. Yeah, I know. Your Zoom still says Brenna Calvert, so it queued me up wrong. Not that I
I have
did not know
I
you
don't
were.
remember how to do this. Yeah, it's like you were at my wedding, I think.
I was there. I was there, which is another story. But
Yes.
anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, I wanted to finish up with my co-host that started it all off with us, or with you and me, and just kind of do a wrap up, kind of like what has happened. So let's start off with first of all, introduce yourself for anyone you haven't been on the podcast
Yeah.
in a while. Let's say so. I'm sure we have some new people who were not 2014 OCR people
I was
listening.
gonna say it's been a decade since this started. So yeah, I am Brenna Jost, formerly known as Brenna the Red Beast Calvert. Most notably from the C2G Pro Team when it was the Conquer the Gauntlet Pro Team. Also part of Strength and Speed. But yeah, I started back in OCR in 2014, was kind of, I guess, on another podcast I've been referred to as one of like the OG ladies of OCR. I say I came a little later than the OGs, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I feel the
I
same for
raced them all. I
myself.
raced them all. I traveled the country and stuff, but I've been out of the game, so to speak, for geez, like 5 years or something now. So if you don't know who I am, that's why.
Yeah. Had a ton of Conquer the Gauntlet podiums, obviously. Conquer the Gauntlet wins, podiums all over the place. See what else? Battle Frog.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I guess I pretty much Battlefront got me started and notoriously and known for some things and certain things. And Broken Skull challenged the
yeah,
TV
yeah.
show twice. Battlefrog ESPN, Savage Race podiums, getting to go to the Middle East twice for Hannibal Race now with, your team sponsor now. And yeah, I build crew for how many race series and world championships. So yeah, I dabbled in all the aspects of OCR. That is for sure.
Indeed. Tell people what Shirtgate is real quick.
Yeah, Shirtgate. So originally, the original Shirtgate from Battle Frog, geez, way back when in Spartan. I podiumed in Spartan in Atlanta, like back in 2015. And I didn't mean to, but I wore a Battle Frog shirt on the podium and was asked to remove the shirt from my body person as I was on the podium, like getting my award, and it blew up and became this like big scandal thing. And then it got big because like Ryan Atkins they pixelated his shirt when he was on the Battlefrog Pro Team. And yeah, it still comes up in memories like 10 years later. People hashtag Shirtgate. And yeah, that was quite the to do and drama that I didn't mean to cause, which tended to happen to me often sometimes.
What's funny is that was actually the first time I wouldn't say met you, but first time we interacted. I was just like, oh, this shirt, like, what's happening? And I think I messaged you. So I think if we
Yeah.
scroll back in time to 2015, like on our messages, I'm sure that'll come up. I have not done it because there's too many messages to scroll back through. But
Yes. Yeah.
that was like the first touch point I had with you. And then, yeah, and then
It
from
definitely
there.
makes me giggle because like I'll see it now posted and it's like the Ryan Atkins, the pixelated thing shown, and then I'm like, oh, by the way, yes, I unfortunately was the original, and like the Spartan cruise, that first cruise was going on, and I had people messaging me like, "What'd you do?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about."
Oh man. Yeah.
Troublemaker from the start.
Yeah, and then on TV, multiple couple TV appearances, right? You mentioned in Battle Frog, when it was they had two different kind of mini series, we'll say on
Yeah,
ESPN.
so they did like the college series challenge, college teams head to head, and then they did like the ESPN like adult pro version from like different cities kind of teams were formed. And I was on Team Houston for that. And I mean, that was crazy fun, just like to be a part of an ESPN production and the swag we got. That's why I giggle. One of my dry robes that I still use to this day was like one of the perks from that show.
What's funny
So,
is when you talk to people who like came to the sport 2020 and later, they're like, "Oh, OCR was on TV." It's like, "Yeah, Battle Frog." They're like, "What?" I was like, "And Toughest Mudder." What? And World's
yeah.
Toughest. And it was like, and Spartan on NBC, right? And then Broken Skull. There was like kind of a lot of OCR overlap shows like Broken Skull Ranch, right? Which you were on that
Yeah,
as
and
well.
that's what I remember the NBC, the Spartan races. I was on like I remember it was Spartan Wintergreen 2014 or so was the first one they aired, and I remember I was like there for it and raced that series. That was funny because I was like, okay, this is the first NBC event, and it was a big time. We were big time then.
We were. It was crazy. This like completely ludicrous.
Yeah, it's not the same anymore though. That's
Things have t
in my
things have
eyes.
things have changed. So we're gonna do a little bit of it's gonna be a little bit of a nostalgic episode. So tell me where you were in life when you first started OCR. Like how did you stumble into the sport and like what was going on outside of OCR and like your personal life essentially?
Yeah, I mean, I had never heard of obstacle course racing, and I at the time, so I moved from Virginia to Georgia and like moved to basically be closer to my family. And I remember, I think the first weekend I was there, my brother had bought us tickets to Spartan Sprint Atlanta. And he was like, I saw this cool YouTube video, like, we're gonna do this event and signed us up for it. And at this point, it was just like the weekend runner. Like I did high school sports and then like occasionally just would kind of run a few miles during the week to like stay fit at that time. I mean, I was young 20s, I think. Yeah, if I do the math, mid 20s, whatever. So we did that. It was totally a fun run. And it was amazing. It was back when the gladiators were still Spartan and like all their videos were crazy deep throat music and fog and made you just get goosebumps from like their little promo videos. Remember going out to the car and having your car flyered with like every race series flyer, sign up for this race, sign up for this race. And it was a minute or so later, and I did, and I just like fell into kind of the racing circuit. And there in Georgia, every race went to and still goes to like the Atlanta area. So there was a big one of those like regional groups that a lot of us grew into or came across, in our obstacle course racing days. So the Gormer, Georgia obstacle mud runner racers. I'd have to look it out for the acronym. But
Yeah.
that was just like how I, met all the different people and got into it and started doing like the group workouts and madness up the mountains and, learned like what these crazy people have been doing for a few years themselves. And then it wasn't until like Battle Frog started. So that's when I really jumped into it. But I, at the time, was a full lifer restaurant bar waitress, nightlife, working like two restaurant jobs at a time. And I remember one of my restaurant jobs, I didn't get off work until like 3-ish in the morning, possibly. And I would stay up to go to these like group workouts that people would do at like 6 a.m. because I couldn't wake up after 2 hours of sleep to go work out with everybody.
Yeah, that's rough. It's better for that something
Yeah.
like that. It's better just to power through it, I think.
Yeah. So I did the mix of like the nightlife and racing and training for a while. And then it was, like after my first year of like combining it all, but I got more serious into the racing side and then took on some sponsors and stuff that I was able to kind of drop out of the restaurant scene per se, because it really wasn't conducive to like training and fitness, honestly. So yeah, but that's what I mean. I went from restaurant life to kind of dove straight into all the aspects of OCR that I could.
Yeah, and then you worked build crew jobs, various companies, right?
Yeah, that's so like I was racing and then I got on and officially like Conquer the Gauntlet was they didn't even ask me. I just kind of threw myself at them and was like, hey, y'all are stuck with me. And so I started building with them, fell in love with it. That got me introduced to like the world championship crew that I kind of already knew and worked with, but when CTG debuted Stairway to Heaven obstacle at OCRWC. Like I was one of the CTG. There was only two of us that went to build that obstacle, and then got on board with Terrain Race. And at that point, yeah, I just became known as like the build crew girl and racer person and everything at that point. So and that's how I met my husband, and that was on build crew together for CTG. So it kind of like that took over my whole life. Basically, I was traveling everywhere and didn't have like an actual home. I'd be the like nomad living out of my car, bouncing around from place to place with all the build crews and stuff. An apartment. I moved to Austin, but I don't think I ever lived in my apartment. So, yeah, things changed from the restaurant city life.
Yeah, wild. And I remember when we first started when the Stairway to Heaven was going to be at OCRWC, we did like a technique video on our Facebook, our CTG Pro Team Facebook page, which is now the
No,
Mud
geez,
Gear
that's
Handle
probably
Race Pro
still one of
Team.
our most. That was probably still our most viewed
And it
video.
was insane. It was like I don't remember the exact numbers, but and it honestly it's not viral like millions of views, but it's viral in the OCR scene, right? Like it was exponentially our most viewed video
Like
compared
10 years
to
ago.
every other video we shot. So.
Well, I mean, I feel like your story, I mean, yours isn't as much of a, I mean, you dabble in this and that, but I feel like you always had kind of sport when you got into OCR. You just was like a new sport for you.
Yeah, I'm not going to go through my whole background because people can just read my book, Ultra-OCR, man, if you really want to know the story. That being said, multi-sport athlete. Wasn't very good at anything, bounced around between a lot of things. Stumbled into obstacle course racing, was planning on just doing like a couple of events to like add some check marks to my race resume, whatever that means. And I was planning on like just kind of doing that and then, moving on to other things, kind of continue to bounce around and realized I was good at it. Realized that World's Toughest Mudder 2014, I was better at it than anything else I'd ever been done in my entire life. And then I was like, no, I should pivot into this hard. And
Yeah.
from there, started writing articles and writing books, and I basically stole models of success from other sports and just pulled them into OCR. Started producing content, started making friends, and like you said, with working on all those different build crews that like you already know people is once you start building relationships, like doors just open. Like, I mean, I I basically just made friends with people and was like nice and tried helping them out. And doors kept opening, and I kept going through them, and then there'd be more doors on the other side that would open, and just had some of the most insane experiences over the
Well, and
last
that's what
decade.
I feel like OCR got into it and I was like, oh my gosh, it spans across the country and world. But then it really was like a small community once you got into the community of like
Yeah.
everybody was connected to everybody down the line somewhere. So, like you said, it just kind of connected you to all these different things. But I giggle because I feel like now I'm grown and I can almost like say some of the drama or things from way back then and when. But talking about how my nightlife and like what I was doing before I got into OCR, I worked at a waitress as a at a strip club as a cocktail waitress, and it was back when I was on like my first pro team before CTG, and it was funny because I was like told I had to choose like that pro team and OCR or not being on the team because of my outside lifestyle was not like proper for the team because I was a waitress at a strip club, looked bad.
And that's what's crazy is like that wasn't like it's not like a full time like the pro team. It's not like a
Nobody's
full. It's
like,
not
I
like that.
mean,
You're not getting a full time salary where you can like quit your day job.
exactly. Like they weren't paying me anything, you know. And it was like, I get it. I'm wearing your name on my what it was just funny. So I giggle now. I'm like, the drama and the how funny. How the times have changed.
Side note: if you start a pro team or running a pro team, you just like you find out about the person first, and if that's something you are hardly against, it's like harshly against, like
Don't put
maybe
them
just
on a
don't
team.
add them. Don't add them to the team.
Yeah. So anyways, a little inside info there 10 years later.
Yeah, that is interesting. I actually didn't know that. I don't think you ever told me that. Um,
Might have been one of the gossips I left out. How could that be?
yeah. We'll go. Maybe we'll touch on that later, but not on the details. I'm not. I'm not. I need to be ruining people's lives 5 years, 10 years later, whatever. But yeah,
I mean, it's one of those names that everybody knows in OCR, so it's just kind of funny. Do you remember
I,
my teal pants? Do you remember the team I was on?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, no,
I know.
he's not a fan.
People don't even know. That person's not around anymore though. So
No, no, yeah.
even if we said the name, people would not know who we're talking about.
Man, even if you dropped his ex-wife's name, people probably still wouldn't even know.
Oh, I
She's
don't.
not around anymore.
Yeah, it's just
Oh.
been a lot. So there's been a lot of changeover. Anyway, um, speaking of changeover and like times changing, you know, what do you want your legacy in obstacle course racing to be?
Oh yeah, the what do I want it to be?
Yeah,
Okay,
we'll start
huh.
with there, and then like we'll do what did you think it is.
Yeah. I mean, I always it originally was like, okay, I wanted to be one of the top tier athletes and known for always being on the podium, and that was like my first goal, and it was attainable for a good like one season, and then I grew and I matured, and I was like, okay, you know what? Nope, I want to be known for the top level athlete, but more widely just known. I was just like a face of OCR. I was a face and a voice, and I want and hope and like was that was my goal for my legacy, was just to kind of be like known as, oh yeah, she was a good athlete, like she was up there, she'd give you running for your money, but she was just everywhere in OCR. We all know her. That's Brenna, Red Beast, OCR, everything.
Yeah. So I guess we probably should have started off with this one. Will there even be will there even be people, will people even have a legacy, right? Like, the sport, we've seen the sport grow, we've seen it contract, we've seen it grow sometimes, we've seen it like it's gone through cycles. It feels like, I don't know, when it was on TV, that felt like the biggest time to me, but that was also when it was still pretty new to me. Um, will there even be a legacy, right? Like in 10 years, will there even be a sport of obstacle course racing? Will anyone talk about obstacle course racing as like, looking back at like the quote unquote golden era of people and with names coming up, or will it just be
Yeah.
like, or will it be like, um, other fitness things like that, so maybe something like Zumba, where it's like no one knows who people are that do Zumba, but like people still do Zumba. That's still like a thing.
Yeah, well,
Um,
I'm like, do
or
people
will it
even
be more
gonna
like CrossFit, where like people in the CrossFit community can look back and remember uh, top CrossFit people from the first decade? What do you think?
I mean, in my mind, I'd like to think yes, but here I am thinking like, any of these people that listen to your podcast for now, even OCR people anymore, we have to listen and be like, what are they talking about? Who is this person? And then I think, I mean, we've got the Atkins name that's like, how could you not remember that name? But then on the flip side of my brain right now, like since Ryan Atkins and Lindsay haven't been in OCR as much, and especially since having their baby, everything mentioned this year in championships, no one mentioned their name of like, oh, back when the Atkins were around, which it's only been this season or like this year, really.
Hmm.
He popped up at World's Toughest briefly. I think had an injury, if I remember correctly. Like I'm still barely in the loop anymore, but it's like I would love to think these names will still be around, but like you said, I don't know. People, it went through its. I feel like it went through its phase of somewhat being known as something, and now it's kind of like the hybrid, like High Rocks is taking over, like more of a sustainable,
Hmm.
longer term fitness aspect, and like yeah, the diehards remember and know what OCR is, but others outside don't. I don't know. It's sad. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know. In my mind, there's some of we'll talk about like memories. I'm like, these are names that people that we raced with on our team wouldn't even remember these memories that I'm talking about 10 years ago.
Yeah. I don't
So
know. I would like to think there's some sort of lasting legacy. Um,
we
I
put in
feel
enough work. There should be.
yeah, I feel like if it stays at the level it is now and never grows, I feel like the legacy will be very niche and very no one really, unless you're like really obsessive and you're someone who goes back and listens to old podcasts and watch like old, you know, CBS and NBC coverage and stuff like that. I feel like
Yeah.
then there'll be a legacy, but I think in order for there to like truly be a legacy, at some point the sport needs another like explosion, another massive growth where it gets
Well,
back on TV, and then
and
it's
I
like,
mean, because I like try to pay attention still to some of the media and some of the current athletes ish, but then I see like podiums and results, and I'm like, nope, don't know you, never heard of you, don't know you. All right, I'm old.
yeah, yeah, and that's just changing time. I mean, there's always a constant there's always a constant turnover in the sport, always in every sport, right? There's constant people coming
Mm,
in and coming out, and you're as someone who's been in the sport for a while, you're always going to remember the people who were there when you came in, right? Because they were, I'm going to use the term like mythical. They were larger than life, right? They were personalities, and you came in and you're like, oh, that's insert name, and then you can kind of look up to them as a someone you're chasing after, and then
yeah,
as those people go and leave, and then someone else comes in, you might be like, well, who is this person? And you might know the first couple of like new people that come in because they're competitive with you, but then the people who are far below that maybe have a rise to the top when you're on your way out or after you leave, you just may not know because they were never one to one, head to head competing with you per se.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think what do I want for me? Like, what do I want my legacy to be? I think basically just someone who gave more to the sport than they took, right? I think
Yeah, yeah.
that's always been kind of my goal between articles and books and stuff like that, and selling Bleg mitts and the podcast and the strength and speed development team, and then the pro team, all that stuff. I've always tried to give back more than I've taken, and I don't know, I feel like I've just gotten so many amazing benefits from the sport. Considering I was like a terrible cross country runner in high school, and the fact that I've essentially like made money and had like a side career racing is
And
honestly
running
pretty
cross country.
ludicrous. It's completely obscene. It's completely insane, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I'd say you've definitely worked your ass off outside off the course, like more than I could maybe like if I had to think about it, like a handful of others that did both as much on
Yeah.
the course and off the course type of thing.
Yeah, and that was always my goal was always when I look at other celebrities who are big and insert, The Rock or whatever.
Oh,
Um
good. For you.
if you insert any sort of celebrity, right? A lot of them do like, they act, but then they might have some other like side thing where they're singing, and then they might do some other. So like they're involved in multiple avenues. So my goal was always to be like, well, I don't have to be the best in any one, but if I'm up there near the top, right? If I'm one of the largest, if I'm one of the most consistent content producers, whether that be writing or podcasting, and I'm racing well, and maybe I'm not on the podium at World Toughest, but maybe I'm just off it, and I'm winning local races and kind of regional races. If we aggregate all that together, then theoretically, right, that kind of elevates you across the board. So I
I
don't
mean, I feel like you met your legacy. I know
know.
you had asked me, so you gave us some questions, and you were like, "Okay, what do you want your legacy to be?" And then you were like, "Okay, what do you think your legacy is?" That one made me laugh because I was like, "Okay, I mean, like, I think I did good at meeting what I wanted my legacy to be,
Yeah,
but also I was like, so in a nutshell, what do I think it is? Loud redhead, speaks her mind, and red shorts. I'm like,
yeah.
that's what I'm gonna be remembered for."
Okay, okay. I
Search
I think
shirt gate, red shorts.
I think because of Amazon, people will remember my books long after I'm gone. Because I wrote my first obstacle course racing book in 2015, maybe 16. Not sure what year it was. And it continues, like I updated it and it was like 2020, and it continues to sell. Like it sells, not I'm not like raking in hundreds of dollars, right? But like, sells a couple of copies per month and it keeps
But that's
selling.
exciting. So like people are like still looking for, like they're searching it, which is cool. Like
Right. And it
that
sells
comes up
internationally
somehow, or they
too.
know. Yeah. See, that's pretty cool. And then so I mean, you have an actual legacy, and then mine's just in my dreams in the OCR world. But thanks to you, I do have a legacy because I'm on one of your covers.
You're on
So
the cover. You're on the cover. Yeah. Yeah. So,
winning.
yeah.
That and TV episodes do kind of they help me there. I get the occasional like your episode just aired on some streaming something or another.
That's
Like
funny.
every once in a while I get that message. I'm like, oh, oh cool. I feel like a nerd.
That is funny. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
where I guess where
go.
you're gonna skip to, let's go to the I just feel like where we are now, like as we're talking about like where I don't know, just like kind of our lives where they started, but what you're doing now, because I mean you're still active, so
I am active. I feel the need to be active all the time. Some of it I think it's some of my natural personality. Other on like the serious side, right? I've had friends that didn't get to come home from Iraq alive, that is, and I think part of that is like I feel like I should live multiple lives because they didn't have time to live theirs, and also some of my experiences, some of like the boring experiences downrange when you're not doing anything, you're just like sitting in your tent watching movies. Like I was like, well, how many movies am I gonna watch? I'm just gonna waste my life watching movies, and I decided I wanted to like live more than I watch other people live. So kind of makes me a little obsessive on things, and when I find a topic I really like, I dive into it. But when I first got involved in obstacle course racing, I was relatively newly married, had no kids, and then by the time my first World Toughest Mudder came around, my wife was pregnant, and now I've got a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old. I did another decade in the military, right? I'm officially retired from the military, so I'm technically retired, and I started
You're so
school again,
old.
I said I was never going to go back to school. But if something's important enough, you make exceptions, and I decided to go back to school for divinity. So Master of Divinity is a theology program, so seminary program, and get ordained as a Greek Orthodox priest in about 4 years. So pretty wild
Yeah,
life
like
changes.
I, yeah, I think my jaw just dropped. And for those that don't know, Evan and I said like we're doing this podcast. I mean, we didn't know each other very well, and then
No, I
have
did.
now.
That's true. I was like, hey, random girl who I've kind of
Yeah.
talked to a couple times. We should start a podcast.
Yeah. So like I mean, we're teammates, but I mean, we've grown to be quite, I'd say, lifelong, hopefully friends to the point where, I mean, we traveled across the country together through a benefit of OCR. He was at my wedding recently, but it's like to hear him talk about this past 10 years, what's changed. I'm like, holy crap. Cause like smidge, yeah. I mean, knowing you and not even 9-year-old, it's mind blowing and jaw dropping because I feel mine's definitely changed, but I feel like mine's less in the like, not so wow. Mine's in the like, huh.
Everyone's growing up. Everyone grew up, I don't know.
Exactly. That's it. I mean, so I completely changed from like nightlife, single life, dating life, wild traveling, the world life. Um, and fitness was always a part of my life. And now I'm like, it's in my head and my dreams, and I need to get back to activity because I went from just so active to, I don't know, my lifestyle now is I'm not saying I'm busier than anybody else by any means, but I'm not sitting and just watching TV or movies either, which I would love to relax. But I now live a ranch wife life. I'm living on the cattle ranch. I met my husband, got married a couple of years now, and we've been together 7 years. But we have cattle together. He ranches with his family. I've taken on like the crazy animal lady, cats, chickens, dogs, turkeys, ducks, you name it. Um, we also, I mean, like down the road, just life. I've back into waiting tables, but ranch life. But I started my own business, oddly enough, which I always wanted to own a restaurant, but I'm now like entrepreneur with my own canning business. So I sell pickles and salsa and a bunch of canned goods that I make from scratch and stuff like that. So I'm like the little homesteading ranch wife life. And
A side note, I
um,
love the spicy pickles.
I need to owe you a Christmas New Year present real soon. um, but yeah, we actually have dreams and hopes like to have a family. Last year we experienced so I mean it's crazy drama like healthy and everything. But I tried to die on all you guys last year. I had a near death experience. We got pregnant.
Yeah.
We lost our baby. I almost died in the process and.
So
So we're
crazy.
still, yeah, like to think of what's happened just in the past years, much less the 10 years. Yeah, one of my customers the other day checked out and we were talking, they were like, all these guys have gotten bad results from their doctor, all these ranchers talking about hearts and diets. And I was like, yeah, I went from heavy fitness and healthy eating. I was like, I just need to get one or the other back, like activity and or better eating. And the guy was like, yeah, weren't you like some crazy athlete for a while? And I just kind of laughed, like, yeah, that was me. That's what I used to be known for, but not anymore. Now I'm known as the pickle lady.
The pickle lady. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Worked
That's
on it.
such a, I mean, that's still huge life-changing events. And, yeah, it's just, I
I
don't
mean,
know.
it's fun. Like, I mean, I'm happy. It's just different when I think back. Like, it wasn't that long ago, but it was forever ago. But I mean, how all of my life came together because of OCR, like it played such a role, but then now it's not as big of a role, which I mean, again, that happens, but definitely people like you and there's a few others that connected to about 10 years ago that we're still besties with. Speaking and seeing Nathan Napalm this weekend
Yeah.
for a Christmas light tour. So
I feel like it went by so fast. I feel like, I don't know. While I'm in it, all I can be think of is like the next race and the next training block, and just like so focused on doing what's directly in front of me and performing. And then it's like I woke up and it's like, oh, a decade has gone by and another 50 another 50 podiums on top of the 50 I already had. And now I've kind of had enough. I don't know. Like it, yeah, it's just
Well,
time
and that's what we'll
flies.
get into it more because you like we prepped for this podcast. You wanted to ask me like some memory questions. I had to think about it, but it was like going down memory lane in my own head of what memories stood out. I'm like, well, over 10 years, like let's just if you named every race, I could tell you an awesome memory from every race or every
Yeah, that's
event.
true. We'll talk about a location, and I will tell my wife some obscure detail about the location and what happened at the race, and she's like, "How do you know remember this stuff?" It's like I don't know. Like it's just, like I know I remember finishing that race, and I remember how I was feeling, and where we like ate after because I remember wearing my like something really specific. And sh
Yeah, it's those core memories. Somehow they stick.
yeah, so let's jump into it. So Tart, let's start talking some memories from OCR. Um, where do you want to start?
Oh, I don't. I mean, I don't know. I've got at the top of my list. You just said your favorite, but I was like,
Let's
okay, wow.
let's start there. Let's start there. That one I don't even think I can pick one, but go ahead.
That's what I was like. I don't even know how to categorize your favorite, but I mean, I had to think, and it was like I went for more of like not my memory of for me, but like what I remember being my favorite memory, and it was like a whole series, kind of like the Bear, like Matt Novakovic versus Hunter McIntyre, like their drama and their competition that they had. It was like back in 2014. The two of these athletes, they were like the top of the game. I think like Hunter had never lost a race, Bear had never lost a race, and again, these were Spartan athletes. Um, Matt Novakovic, he dropped out a while, but like if you watched, some of you might be more familiar with Hunter McIntyre because he's still kind of relevant in like high rocks and stuff, I guess. Um, but they had like a crazy rivalry going on, and it was during the NBC events, and it was like shit talking on social media, and then like drama at the races, and it was heated competition, but it kind of culminated in the wintergreen event with Bear and Hunter, and I'm pretty sure Bear won, and like Hunter like gashed his. I don't know. It was just crazy. But I just remember like the whole snowball of them because it was my first like pro drama, like being like,
Mm.
okay, what's next? Who's gonna do what? Who's gonna win? And like to have two back to back athletes in the sport, kind of like causing drama, but fun and entertaining and crap talking too. So that was for me my favorite, just because it was like made it like a real. I don't know, like there were like it brought you into it, like it
Ah, okay,
got
gotcha,
you
gotcha.
excited, like drew you into it.
What about one where you were physically involved in?
Oh
Or should we just save that
man.
for the end? Why don't if that's too like I feel like I don't even have a
Yeah,
good answer for that because I feel like
yeah, I
that.
don't have a good answer because that's almost like yeah, I'll have to think about that one. That'll brainstorm as we're talking about the like wins and stuff. I don't know.
All right, let's jump in. Let's talk about biggest win. What's your biggest win? And it doesn't have to be like actual monetary. It's just something like you cherish.
Yeah, no, I mean, to me, it was like a monetary and a placement, but it's what started the whole thing, and that's why it's my biggest win was because it was my first elite race. Like I signed up, my friends were like, "Well, you had fun at these, and you always like run off and kick our ass and then come back for us, so like sign up elite." And it was the second ever Battle Frog, when it was in Carolina because I did Atlanta. I ran that one for fun, and then I signed up elite for Carolina, and I won. Like I was like my mind was blown because I wasn't like training OCR training. I was just going out and running during the week, and yeah, so winning that just kind of
Mm.
made everything else happen. Like if I hadn't won that race and met the Battle Frog people and started running that series and my first like ORM interview. And yeah, I don't know if I would have done all the other stuff after that. So that was my biggest win overall because it just kind of snowballed everything after that.
Yeah, yeah.
What about you?
That's a tough one. I kind of broke it down to like small or shorter races and longer races because there's a different feeling, right? Like when I crossed the finish line of like an ultra, it's been a grind and it's like I don't know, it's a different feeling versus a short course. It all happens so fast, right? 30 minutes or whatever, right? 30 minutes an hour, whatever the however long the course may be. But like it's like you're like holding on like at your max pace, and then like it could go, especially with mandatory completion, it could go wrong at any point, right? Like you can
Right.
go from first to last. Um, versus ultra, usually towards the end, you generally have an idea of where you're finishing, and like yes, the positions can still change, but it's you kind of know what's coming. So for
Right.
the short course ones, um, the Hannibal Race Kuwait win is up there. I was just shocked. I was shocked at that one. Um, the I'd say the two probably biggest short course ones. So when I won Conquer the Gauntlet Iowa, it's my first time winning a regular. I'd won CTG XDC, like the hybrid event before, but I'd never won a pure Conquer the Gauntlet, and I'd been on the podium I think 8 or 9 times at that point. And the picture of me like falling across the finish line and hugging Dave, and my dad was there.
And
Just
my
happened
dad
to,
was there. Yeah.
he just happened to be there that weekend, like the one CTG race he showed up to. It was like insane. Um, yeah, and
I want to have photos. I love the photo memories.
yeah,
That's
it's so good. And then the one that wasn't a win, but it was such a the when my team came in second place at North American OCR Championship. So me, Amy Pagic, and Matt Willis, and
oh
uh,
yeah,
it was raining, and a bunch of the other teams who were much faster than us couldn't get across the obstacles. So, um,
that feels good.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So let's move on. We kind of categorized biggest surprise. So I don't. I took that kind of as like two. I did like a surprise win or like surprise finish, and then just kind of like another surprise moment. Um, so I put second place Battle Frog Houston, and I was like, wait, why was that a surprise? Oh yeah, because I spent 2 hours on top of Monkey Bar.
Mm.
That's the one where it was, I'm pretty sure I podium with, again, where I'm like, one of those moments that I just cherish because I have a picture of me on the podium with KK and Corinna. Like, what a dream to be next to KK and Corinna on a podium because, again, at the time, those were like two of the girls that when they raced, you knew they were going to be on the podium. So, to my surprise, when there were other athletes there that like were on podiums all the time, um, again, that's one of those moments that like I kind of was famous or infamous for. Like there's a lot of memes where like I'm sitting on top of the obstacle with other girls and all these like funny jokes. Like even my boyfriend at the time got like a phone call from one of the race directors, like, yeah, your girlfriend's just chilling on top of obstacles, and it was a weird design and blah blah blah. But yeah, after 2 hours or so, I got down and managed to be on the podium. So that was a very like shocking surprise, and like I don't, yeah, it counts, but it shouldn't have counted.
Yeah, and that's one of the things without mandatory completion, that's not a those memories don't exist, right? You're
Yeah,
like, oh,
like no,
I'm gonna go do my burpees or do whatever, and then run
yeah,
my
like those
penalty
are
and
the days
finish.
where you camped out, like Battle Frog. You camped out for hours, and it's
Oh, you
like
need those memories.
it's
That's part of the
stupid. And like
sport.
I did it several times, and then I just never did it again. After like I was like, okay, I'm done with this camping out. Like I give up. I quit. I had to learn my limits. So that was my surprise win. But then just kind of my like surprise moment overall was honestly first season, like being accepted and chosen and making an Unbroken Skull challenge, and then like going again for an All Star season. I mean, it's just a surprise. It's one of those once in a lifetime, yet two times in a lifetime experiences to go on. At the time, it was like a nationally aired TV show, so um, something I would not have done without OCR and the connections, and it was just like a fluke, honestly, how that happened. So
All right, so I've been trying to get Brenna back on the line. Essentially, we were having trouble coordinating the time to record this episode, so we decided to record half of it at one point, and then we're going to decide to record the other half at a different point. Long story short, between Christmas, between travel, and everything else that was going on, the second half of the podcast ended up never happening. So I'm just going to finish it up on my own because I wanted to push this out by the end of 2024, and we are in the final couple of hours, and I wanted to get it out, so I'm just going to kind of finish it off on my own. I'm going to run through some of my like top 10 personal best moments in OCR on short distance and on the ultra side, and just basically share some lessons learned that I think we can pull out and apply to your experiences in general. So some of the shorter distance ones was CTG Atlanta. There was this giant warped wall. I made it all the way. I think I was in third or fourth going in to the warped wall, which was like right before the finish. Got stuck there. So did everyone else. Ended up making it up the wall and finishing second. Beat some guys who usually beat me, like Jay Flores. Lesson there is, especially with mandatory obstacle completion, it's never over till it's over. So you always run hard, and you always be persistent, especially if you get stuck in an obstacle, because you never know what anyone else is going to do. That's one of the things that makes mandatory obstacle completion great. Varying placements even in the final couple of meters. Another big one was my trip to Hannibal Race in Lebanon and Kuwait. Both of those were insane experiences. Never thought an athlete of my caliber would get an opportunity like that, but I got to go to Lebanon, I got to go to Kuwait, got to go to Kuwait again, and I got to go to Saudi Arabia. Thanks to some generous sponsors and some great opportunities and some people within the industry that really help things out. And the lesson there is you never know what doors will lead to other doors, right? So I started off just kind of being nice to people because to me that was just the right thing to do, and it's the way to grow the sport. And that created some amazing opportunities that I would not have had the opportunity if I wasn't just trying to be a decent human being, right? So always be nice to people. I think that works in obstacle course racing, works in life, and maintain positive relationships. You never know what something's going to lead to. My CTG XTC win, that was my first Conquer the Gauntlet win. I'll lump the Conquer the Gauntlet win that wasn't an XTC at Iowa, and a lot of it comes down to persistence, right? It took me years, multiple attempts, multiple trials, showing up to races where I didn't think I had a chance. And you just never know how the field's going to play out. You never know if people are dealing with injuries, how they slept last night, if they're dealing with other stresses in their lives. So regardless of what the field looks like, if you've been putting in the work, you show up, you train hard, do your best on race day, and you'll see how things shake out. And that could go for placement, but it also go for getting across a hard obstacle. It could also go for, beating someone you never beaten before. It can also go for personal best on time. Another one, hammer race with team strength and speed. I've talked about it a couple times in this podcast, but showed up to an event where you carry a 10-pound sledgehammer through the obstacle course, and I helped a couple people get their first OCR win, which is awesome, such a great experience. And I think when you share the joy with other teammates, it multiplies the joy, especially if they're guys who not normally on the top of the podium. So, and if you fast guys out there, occasionally take the time to join a team that may not be like the superstar best team in the world, but, a couple of guys who are solid performers but may not be, at the top of the game. I think helping other people win is just a really cool experience and something I'll always cherish. Another one is my wife at Rugged doing the Stein hoisting challenge. Again, that wouldn't happen if I didn't go to the OCR and I didn't convince my wife to do the Stein hoisting. But that picture of my wife holding our newborn baby while she's asleep, and my wife has the arm extended, winning the Stein hoisting competition. That was the start of her 9 or 10 wins. I lost count, honestly. That was such a cool experience, and there was a couple times when we actually got to share the quote-unquote first place podium. I won the OCR, she won the Stein hoisting competition. So I always encourage people to bring their families when they go to OCRs or even for trips, right? So maybe your wife doesn't want to come or spouse doesn't want to come hang out at the race, but afterwards, you turn it into a family trip. A lot of my great memories in OCR are not only tied to the race, but tied to my family and what we did afterwards, which a lot of times I won't post pictures or share stories about. But I remember those OCR moments because they're all kind of intertwined together, and it got me into states and cities that I normally never would have visited if it wasn't for them having an obstacle course race there. Conquer the Gauntlet, Wichita, I think it was like 2017, 2018, rig crossing. A bunch of people got stuck at a rig. Super hard to get across. I think it took me around 7 tries, and I get across, and I'm super excited. Again, that persistence paying off, and I crossed the finish line, and it looks like I just won the race, but I'm in 7th place, right? Not in prize money. Just happy to physically get across, So sometimes that experience of overcoming something you thought may be impossible is even much better than even winning, right? So another great benefit of mandatory obstacle completion, and a great life lesson just on persistence in things. And last one I'll share, because I kind of covered some of the other ones earlier, was NORAM, 2nd place. Again, you never know what other people are going to do, and our team was not the fastest, and we ended up coming in 2nd against other teams that were honestly much better than us, but they couldn't do all the obstacles, and the rain on the course made some of the obstacles a lot harder. So again, show up, be persistent, diversify your skills, train hard, keep showing up, and you'll never know what opportunities you'll have. Some of my favorite long course memories were Conquer the Gauntlet Continuum. I had a really close race against Brent Hester. I think I was in second for almost the entire race and passed him about a mile into the final lap of 4 mile. Each lap's about 1 mile. So I passed him right at the end and really pushed the pace hard until I'd gapped him significantly. And that was part of Conquer the Gauntlet, the first year they had it, so it would have been 2019, I believe. And I was trying to get essentially perfect wins, so 4 races, 4 wins. In order to get the Centurion medal, you have to do 4 races. So my goal was 4 Conquer the Gauntlet Continuum wins. And when I had 3, I was driving to Iowa. Was Iowa? Yeah. And I started vomiting in the car. Or was it Little Rock? I think it was Little Rock, actually. I started vomiting in the car, pulled over, vomited some more. Drove to the race anyway, vomited on the way down one more time. Slept for 12 hours, woke up, and I was like, well, I haven't thrown up in 12 hours, so I guess we'll see what happens. And I went out there. Again, wasn't really feeling good, and actually felt better probably a lap or 2 in. Ended up winning that race as well. Another one, my very first World's Toughest Mudder. I think that's always a memorable experience if you've never done a World's Toughest. Just going and pushing beyond that comfort zone, getting into something that's really hard, way above essentially your skill level, because I feel like World's Toughest Mudder is basically above everyone's skill level on some aspect, whether it be the cold, whether it be the distance, whether it be the obstacles, whether it be all of that combined. My first experience there was just, literally was the first domino that led to a decade-long career in obstacle course racing. And I feel like World's Toughest Mudder is always like a milestone event for me every year. 2017, it was the end of the Ultra-OCR Grand Slam where I did, I think, 6 24-hour OCRs in a calendar in 365 days, which was a lot on my body. 2016 was when I hit 90 miles for the first time. Again, did I think 90 miles at that time was possible? I didn't. I was just going out there and I was like, well, I'm in good shape. We're just going to run at a comfortable pace and we'll see how far we get. And I hit 90 miles in top 10. I was trying to squeeze into the top 10 that year. I wasn't expecting, obviously, to get that high of a mileage and still and get into top 10. So that was kind of a nice surprise. Almost every one of my toughest Mudder individual races is a great memory. Whether it be my first one, where I hit 3rd place with Mark Odette was just ahead of me on the podium. First time hitting 60 miles at a toughest Mudder, or the one I think it was in Philly. I was in like 4th or 5th going into the final lap and pushed really hard, crossed the finish line, and ended up squeezing into, I believe it was 3rd. Anyway, the point is, ultras, especially if you have to fight for a placement, whether it be an age group placement, an overall placement, or even just beating one of your friends that you have a rival with, or maybe even just getting that mileage marker that you're going after. I think those are always great memories and teaches you about persistence, teaches you about really digging deep. It's one thing to dig deep for, 5K, which is over in a couple minutes. It's another thing to dig deep 10 hours into a race and dig deep for about an hour and a half at the end. Both are hard. They are different, though, and they have different feelings, and there's different... It's just... You need to experience both. If you're a short course person, do a long course occasionally. If you're a long course person, do a short one occasionally. They are both painful. They are both different, which is why I have a lot of respect for any athlete who performs at a high level regardless. Or even, anyone who's really pushing their limits. Because you can be a high-level athlete and not run super hard and still get a really good placement so it looks impressive to other people. But when you cross the finish line, you're like, I still had a lot left in the tank. And it's just not the same. Like, you need to get close to that physical limit that you have in your body. And I feel like the only way I can really do that is through competition. I don't think I can push that hard in training. I need that external pressure. I need that external reward, and that this matters now and in this moment, and you have to do it type pressure for me. My first ultra win was BFX Cincinnati, back when Battle Frog was a thing. That was another big one. I feel like your firsts for any sort of major accomplishment is always really important. And any of your biggest ones, obviously, like World's Toughest Mudder 2018 team win for me, that was a big one for me. even though that race itself wasn't very exciting, me and Wesley Kerr took off and got a pretty good lead early on, and then just basically extended and held it to the end of the race. So honestly, the race itself wasn't exciting. The result was exciting, being able to stand on the World's Toughest Mudder podium, first place team. And that's the last time the team division did both people on the course or the entire team on the course at the same time. So that still holding on to that. I don't know if they'll ever bring it back, but me and Wesley were the last two men all on the course the entire time team to win. Yeah, so that's a quick rundown. I didn't necessarily go in order, top 10, but jumped around covering some of the major events. You know, OCR has been so good to me over the last decade. It's just stories upon stories, and, you know, I've been able to produce books, documentary, articles, etc. I've had a lot of my costs have been completely repaid, and then some opportunities to travel the world, products, awesome people I've gotten to meet, great relationships. I mean, at least if you listen to all the people who've been on this podcast, again, just another really cool, unique experience. I've gotten to interview guys like John Kelly, who wrote the foreword to On Endurance. He's a multi-time Badwater finisher, I think 3 times at this point, which is, I think, tied for the most. And while this is not necessarily the end of me in obstacle course racing, it is definitely a significant downturn, downshift. I've got a lot of other things on my plate. Recently retired from the military. I'm at seminary right now, so I've kind of focused on that. Our internet in the school housing, family housing on campus isn't the best, so I've had a lot of trouble. There's been multiple times I've tried to record podcasts, started recording, internet wasn't holding up very well, ended up having to cancel and reschedule. You add in finals, you add in coursework, and then you add in all the martial arts stuff I'm doing off to the side, nightly training, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and then started the Patreon page to help offset some of the costs of some of my martial arts training. And then my waning ability / time available to continue to run obstacle course racing at the level I feel I would want to run it if I continue to compete. And a less desire to continue to put in the training volume required to perform well at ultra endurance has kind of led me to this point. I think other people are doing obstacle course racing coverage better and more comprehensively than I am. You know, the OCR reports at World's Toughest Mudder was amazing. It was insane. If you haven't seen that, it's on their YouTube page. Matt B. Davis of Obstacle Racing Media, right, puts out regular content on his podcast channel. And then Obstacle Running Adventures, another Northeast brand that's been doing a lot of the coverage. You know, I was kind of holding on for the last couple of years because I was kind of like the only voice in the Midwest, but I've moved out of the Midwest. I'm in the Northeast now, and Mike Stefano's got that covered pretty well. Kind of all those things combined, I've kind of entered into semi-retirement for obstacle course racing. You'll still see me at some shorter races, maybe below 12 hours, maybe like some of the local ultras. I don't plan on running any more toughest mudders, the 12-hour ones, as an individual. I could be talked back into doing that as a relay team. I think I'm done with World's Toughest as an individual. Again, I could be talked back into it as a relay team, given the right opportunity. The tentative plan is to go to World's Toughest in 2025 as media, though, not as a racer. So that's kind of it. I wanted to thank you all for listening over the last, it's been 8 years? Yeah, 8 years. We started in 2017. This podcast and the audio files from previous episodes are still available on the Strength and Speed YouTube page. I do not plan on producing any more Strength and Speed podcasts on the podcast channel. I do plan on occasionally doing some, very infrequently, on the YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed to Strength and Speed YouTube, I believe it's youtube.com/@Ultra-OCR subscribe to Strength and Speed there, and I'll try to share them to social media. Again, if you're not following me on social media, facebook.com/Ultra-OCR. Follow our Instagram and Facebook, facebook.com/Team Strength Speed, or the Instagram.com/Strength Speed. And then all of my social media handles are essentially facebook.com Ultra-OCR, Instagram Ultra-OCR, YouTube @Ultra-OCR. Some of my social media switched over to, it's a mix of martial arts, it's a mix of obstacle course racing, it's a mix of Christianity type stuff. So if you have any mild interest in any of that stuff, I assume at least for the OCR, make sure you're following and continue to follow that content there. And as always, teamstrengthspeed.com, the website will continue to up and operating, sending Blegmit lights out to people, sending books out to people. Still a good resource to look at for books, information, and kind of what else I've been doing in those spaces. So that's it. It's been eight awesome years. Thank you all for listening, especially if anyone's been listening the entire time. I'm not sure if that's happening, but I really appreciate your support. I thank you for sticking around. Wished you all the best in 2025 and beyond, and you'll still see me at some races, just maybe not in the same capacity. Continue to prepare properly, be persistent in your training, and that'll lead to good performance on race day. This is Evan, Ultra-OCR Man Perperis, signing off of the Strength and Speed podcast for the last time. See you guys around.